America has always believed in reward. Work hard, stay disciplined, obey the rules, and prosperity will follow. That belief, often called the American dream, was once rooted in patience, sacrifice, and delayed gratification. But somewhere along the way, that dream collided with the church altar and produced something far more dangerous: the prosperity gospel. The prosperity gospel teaches that faith guarantees material success. Wealth is no longer a possible blessing, it becomes proof of righteousness. Poverty is no longer a social problem, it becomes evidence of weak faith, moral failure, or divine disfavor. In this worldview, God is not primarily concerned with justice, compassion, or humility. He is a divine transaction partner. Sow a seed, expect a harvest. This theology did not emerge in a vacuum. It thrived because it aligned perfectly with America's deep obsession with success, wealth, and visible achievements. But what began as a motivational message slowly evolved into a spiritual distortion that reshaped churches, politics, culture, and even how Americans understand God. The roots of the prosperity gospel in America can be traced back to early 20th century America, particularly the New Thought movement and later the Word of Faith movement. These teachings emphasized positive thinking, spoken declarations, and the idea that words themselves could shape reality. By the 1950s and 1960s, televangelism gave this theology a national stage. Preachers discovered that promises of healing, wealth, and personal breakthroughs attracted massive audiences. Faith was no longer about obedience or repentance, it became a technique. Say the right words, give the right amount, believe hard enough. This message exploded in the 1980s and 1990s, an era defined by corporate greed, in quotes, Wall Street excess, and Reagan-era capitalism. Mega churches rose, religious leaders began to resemble CEOs, sanctuaries became arenas, sermons became sales pitches. Christianity, once centered on the suffering Christ, was quietly replaced with a gospel of success. The prosperity gospel did not just change theology, it transformed pastors into celebrities. Charisma mattered more than character, image mattered more than integrity. Some pastors began to measure God's blessings, in quotes, by private jets, luxury cars, designer suits, and multi-million dollar homes. Their lifestyles were presented not as excess, but as proof that the message worked. Quote, "If God did it for me," they said, "He can do it for you." But this logic created a dangerous hierarchy within Christianity in the US. The rich were elevated as spiritual role models. The poor were subtly blamed for their condition. Jesus' warnings about wealth were reinterpreted or ignored. His teachings on humility, sacrifice, and service faded into the background. Churches stopped asking hard moral questions and started offering motivational reassurance. Sin was rebranded as negativity, in quotes. Repentance was replaced with positive confession. One of the most destructive effects of the prosperity gospel in America is how it reframed poverty. In classical Christianity, the poor were people to be defended, protected, and cared for. In prosperity theology, poverty became a spiritual failure. If you are struggling financially, you are told to check your faith. If you are sick, you are accused of doubt. If your prayers are unanswered, you are blamed for blocking your miracle. Instead of asking why systems fail people, prosperity theology asks why people fail God. The prosperity gospel did not just influence churches, it merged seamlessly with American capitalism. Christianity became a motivational tool for economic ambition. Success seminars replaced Bible studies. Giving was framed not as generosity but as an investment. Blessings were marketed like financial returns. This theology conveniently justified extreme wealth accumulation. If someone was rich, they they were blessed. If a corporation exploited workers but donated to churches, it was still considered godly. Jesus' radical critique of wealth, his warnings about serving God versus money, became uncomfortable truths that churches avoided. Instead, capitalism was baptized and declared holy in the church. The result was a faith that comforted the powerful while silencing the suffering. Prosperity theology also reshaped American politics, particularly among some evangelical communities. If wealth is proof of God's favor, then successful leaders, regardless of moral character, are seen as divinely chosen. This belief made it easier for Christians to support policies that favored the rich, cut social safety nets, and dismissed the struggles of the marginalized. Compassion was replaced with personal responsibility rhetoric. Justice was reduced to individual morality. Political leaders who promised economic dominance, power, and national greatness were embraced, even when their behavior contradicted Christian ethics. Faith became a tool for power, not a voice of moral restraints. As prosperity gospel leaders grew richer, scandals followed. Financial misconduct, sexual abuse, manipulation, and cover-ups became common headlines. Each scandal eroded public trust. Younger generations watched churches defend corrupt leaders while ignoring victims. Christianity began to look less like a moral compass and more like a business empire protecting its interests. Many Americans did not reject Christianity because they hated God. They rejected it because the version they saw felt hollow, hypocritical, and greedy. The church lost its prophetic voice, the ability to challenge injustice and speak truth to power. In the rise of the prosperity gospel, America lost something essential, a faith that could sit with suffering. The original Christian message did not promise wealth, it promised meaning. It did not guarantee comfort, it offered hope in hardship. It did not glorify power, it exalted sacrifice. Prosperity theology replaced the cross with a contract. God became a means to an end. Faith became transactional, and in doing so, it hollowed out Christianity's moral depth. Today, cracks are showing, attendance is declining, young people are disillusioned, former believers are speaking out, some churches are rediscovering social justice, humility, and service. There's growing awareness that faith cannot survive as a self-help industry. A gospel that cannot confront suffering cannot heal a broken society. Whether America can recover a deeper, more honest Christianity remains an open question. If Christianity is to regain credibility, it must reject the lie that wealth equals virtue. It must reclaim compassion, accountability, and moral courage. The gospel was never meant to make people rich, it was meant to make people whole. Until that truth is restored, the damage caused by the prosperity gospel will continue to shape America's faith, politics, and culture, for better or for worse. Thank you for joining us today. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you later.